The first Diablo game is legendary in so many aspects in that it basically invented its own micro-genre and style of gameplay and game design philosophy. It released in late 1996, during a time where people were almost getting tired of traditional turn-based RPG games and story-laden games. Games were becoming more about action and fast-paced pick-up-and-play experiences like all the side-scrollers on the consoles at the time. Diablo reinvented the RPG by making gameplay and action front and center and rejecting extensive story and dialogue. Most RPGs at the time centered around long, drawn-out segments where you just talk to NPCs or read paragraphs and paragraphs of writing and here and there do little turn-based segments. But in Diablo, you get a brief introduction of these creepy dark gothic cutscenes depicting demons and a lone wanderer, then a voice acting by the various town NPCs you talk to, and then you're off to immediately crawl down into the church dungeon to suddenly be thrown into hordes upon hordes of demons to kill. And that's the rest of the game. It was innovative and revolutionary to have this rich RPG experience be completely focused upon raw action gameplay rather than long-winded storytelling. The game features co-op multiplayer functionality, which is surprising considering how old it is. It also goes to show again how innovative this game was. What other RPG let you play through the whole game over the internet with a friend back then? Very few. I have no nostalgia for this game either, as I only played it around 5 years ago, and since then beaten it multiple times. In single player and a few times in multiplayer. Most recently just a few days ago in co-op. The single player and co-op experience is mostly the same, but there are a few key differences. In single player there's a couple dozen optional quests that you can randomly get assigned to do, making each playthrough slightly more different. These quests usually revolve around special unique items, but in multiplayer you get the same 3 or 4 optional quests, and it's kind of buggy. And they also usually do not reward those special unique items like in single player, and there's almost no reward for doing them strangely enough in multiplayer. But at least you still get the Butcher, Skeleton Knight, and Archbishop Lazarus quest, although you miss out on the iconic Archbishop cutscene and dedicated battle room sequence in multiplayer. In single player, you can save and load at any time, and upon death, you simply reload your last save. However, in multiplayer, death is a serious setback and consequence, because when a player dies in multiplayer, they drop all their equipped items and must either wait to be respawned via a resurrection scroll or respawn in town from the escape menu, and then try to come back and get your items. And it's very possible for both players to die, lose all of their items, and have to reset the dungeon by making a new game and having to claw your way back, getting new items from scratch. It's punishing and hardcore. Although if you remake the map, you save your stats, level, and experience. But all of the cleared monsters are now respawned. The entire premise of the game is that you start off going down into this cathedral dungeon, and you just keep finding staircases going further down, all the way eventually to the final floor, number 16. In single player, since you can save at any time, it's hard to lose progress as enemies don't respawn, and it's easy to get back and forth with the town portals. However, in multiplayer, each time you launch the game, all the enemies respawn, and you lose your progress in the dungeon. Thankfully, there are shortcuts that let you skip to various floors of the dungeon. The dungeon has 4 general areas and themes. First is the cathedral dungeons, the catacombs, caves, and then finally hell. There are shortcuts in town in multiplayer to floor 5, 9, and 13, so it's easy enough to get back to the general area that you left off at. And multiplayer even rewards grinding and resetting dungeons, because the enemies are much harder than single player, and the general difficulty of the game is increased to compensate for more players, coupled with losing items on death. I would describe the gameplay as very simplistic to pick up and learn, but kind of hard to master. There's 3 playable classes. Each of them offer a significantly different experience and vibe. There's Warrior, Rogue, and Sorcerer. Any character can use any item or spell, but they each offer inherent buffs and abilities. Like the Warrior inherently has more health and defense, and gets more of a bonus from the Strength attribute, whereas the Archer, also known as the Rogue, gets a damage bonus from Dexterity, and the Sorcerer naturally is higher in magic and spellcasting abilities. In this game, you walk very slowly, something I think many people over the years have complained about, but it's only a problem in town trekking back and forth for items and health potions. In the dungeons, the movement speed is perfectly suitable. The game is in real time, and you simply click on enemies over and over to attack. There's magical spells you can learn in the form of randomly spawning books you can read, which grant permanent access to the spells. But for the most part, it's completely fine to play through the entire game with at least Rogue and Warrior by using 0 spells and just your default attack. It's a very minimalistic game compared to other RPGs, where you don't need all sorts of different abilities and attacks, You just swing your main weapon at the enemy, is all you need to know for the most part. The sorcerer typically uses all sorts of these crazy spells, like Mana Shield, Firebolt, Firewall, that completely changes the gameplay, and it's rewarding and worth it to play through the game with every single character. Also, in multiplayer mode, the rogue and sorcerer can hurt players with their projectiles, something which cannot be disabled. For example, playing through co-op with rogue and warrior needs a lot of cooperation and strategy, because it's very easy for the rogue to accidentally shoot the other player with your arrows, so you need to constantly be communicating where each other is standing, something I actually appreciated and thought benefited the hardcore intense feeling of tension that this game has. Even the loot is very simplistic compared to other older and more modern RPGs. Most of the loot for the first quarter of the game is just basic generic white items that do stuff like 2 to 6 damage, 1 to 10 damage, etc. for the weapons, and the armor is just things like +3 to armor, +5 to armor. Easy. You can open the character sheet to see exactly how much damage you do, and your defenses and total health, to check if items are actually upgrades or not. You start finding magic items, which are blue, and usually have an extra stat or two, something like 15% fire res, or fast attack, or +10 to dexterity, strength, etc. There are some quirky stats you can get, like hit recovery %, light radius, penetrate armor, or chance to hit %, which keeps the itemization fresh and interesting, coming across these oddities. Much of the loot is about finding slightly better versions of basic gear, which is an addicting but rewarding process, because unlike other RPGs, you don't have to pull up spreadsheets or endlessly crunch numbers or anything to try to determine what to use. It's mostly intuitive and exciting sorting through items. You can find unique gold-colored items that give very special and interesting stats, but these are few and far between, but they are very fun to find. You level, of course, by killing monsters, and you get rewarded 5 attributes to distribute between strength, dexterity, vitality, and magic, which are all self-explanatory, maybe except dexterity, because it raises your % chance to hit, but also because the rogue gets a special damage bonus from it, which isn't explained in game, so reading the manual is something expected of you and was commonplace at the time. So while the game is easy to pick up and play and understand, the hard to master part is the overall brutal difficulty curve and challenge that the game offers. Each new floor you progress gets much harder than the last. The general slow, methodical nature of the game ensures that you must be very careful with every last step you take, because each step you take is another chance to attract another horde of demons and monsters. If you make the wrong move, you can get yourself cornered and overwhelmed in an instant. Everything you do matters in this game. The game almost has a sense of horror and dread and tension unlike any other RPG or even Diablo game I've played. It's almost akin to a survival horror game, where you have to be very aware and concerned with your various resources, potions, and methodically choose your fights and battles, because it's so easy to make one wrong action and get totally destroyed in an instant. You can't just blindly run in and swing at most monsters, because many rooms are just filled to the brim with all sorts of demons that will overwhelm you. You can press tab to see an overview map of the area, and there's this thing called Fog of War, where you cannot see areas on the map that you have not yet discovered. And each uncovered area of the map is certain danger. So it's this constant dance of being afraid to uncover more of the fog and retracing previous safe areas while dragging monsters to fight them in your new safe zones. Because again, especially in multiplayer, death is a serious consequence, and you drop all of your equipped items you worked so hard for. It's a real risk that you can never get them back again. Each new floor you climb down has all sorts of new unique threats, too. For instance, on floor 5, you have these yellow zombie monsters called Black Plague, which every time they hit you has a chance to make you permanently lose 1 maximum health point. Something that isn't very obvious at the time, but if you have a keen eye and look at your health points on the character sheet, you can in fact see it. Also, to add to the constant mystery and tension of the game, you have all sorts of randomly spawning shrines, altars, pools, and interactable objects just give you this vague line of text riddles, leaving you clueless what the hell you just clicked or what it does. Usually what they do are either temporarily buff you, sometimes permanently buff your stats, but they can also permanently or temporarily reduce your stats and abilities. So there's this constant sense of mystery and confusion around the whole game, really adding to the sense of suspense and atmosphere, like you really are in this occult, obscure world. The graphics and music are simply great. The graphics have this distinct characteristic style of these 90s hand-drawn sprites and animations. It's crude but also sophisticated at the same time. It has a great color palette, where everything is identifiable at a glance, and especially the UI. The interfaces are very well done and eye-catching. There is this gothic font used across the game that just looks badass and cryptic. The inventory screen is iconic, arguably creating the inventory Tetris and micromanagement now famous in ARPGs, where each item in your inventory takes up a different amount of blocks and you have to carefully arrange your picked up items in order to be able to pick up more things, adding a real feeling of weight and meaningfulness to your items. All the sprites and graphics for the items look great and have a distinct personality to each piece, which makes finding new items and gear an exciting process. The monsters also look amazing. They're even scary and horrific at times. You have all sorts of monsters, from goat archer demons, classic humanoid demon men with horns, insectoids, zombies, imps, strange teleporting creatures, gargoyles, winged bat demons, beasts, and so on. And each of them have their own specific AI and behavior. Like some of them will be super aggressive and charge across the map at you. Others will attack once and then run away. Others will stand across the map shooting projectiles. Others will attack you until they get low health and then run away, etc. Others, like the zombie, will just blindly run for you and attack until they die. So it's not just like there's one piece of AI code copy-pasted to every monster in the game. It adds a lot of variation and strategy to the various encounters. It makes target prioritization a big deal, and deciding what the worst threats are is a critical skill and keeps the gameplay exciting and different. The floors are mostly procedurally generated, meaning each game you start, the layout of the floors will be completely different. Things like shrines are random, the items are random, the monster placements are random. What stays the same is the general theme of the floors and mostly what kind of monsters you will encounter. For example, floors 1 to 4 is always the cathedral basement. Then you move on to the catacomb style levels, then the cave, then the hell areas. So it's not like fully random, which is great because it remains a steady sense of pacing and progression. The graphics of these different areas are great, and it's not like the whole game is just the same look. Each area looks completely different, and at one point you feel yourself climbing closer to hell because you start to enter these lava areas. And then when you reach hell, it's very obvious as you've climbed into this otherworldly domain where there's staircases made of rib cages and bone walls everywhere. And the entire audio design is simply amazing. The sound effects are implanted in my mind. I can hear them without even playing the game. Everything has a distinct, unique sound attached to it. The monster groans when you hit them, gold hitting the ground, sound of potions. All the voice acting is great from the town NPCs, as well as the dialogue and story is thoroughly interesting because the game doesn't have much of it, so the bits you get are that much more important and interesting. Sometimes saying less is more, developers. The music is just perfect. Tristram theme is one of the greatest pieces of music in gaming. It's like a composition akin to Mozart or some shit. It perfectly sets the vibe and atmosphere of the whole game. As you progress through the dungeon floors, the soundtrack shifts and morphs into all sorts of creepy moans and cries, sometimes of even human babies crying in the distance. There's a bunch of musical moments that are hair-raising, dark ambience, generally creepy, unnerving soundtracks that's perfect for the whole game. I especially admire towards the end of the game when you start getting these almost sarcastic, ironic, kind of funny marching band pan flute war music. It's all twisted and distorted to sound demonic and turned evil as you march onwards to Diablo. The last few floors of the game are a real challenge, especially as the warrior. There are lots of these witch-type enemies that shoot magic across the room at you and run away when you get close. You have to be very careful to get one of them at a time, or else you'll get pelted with magic bolts that kill you fast unless you have good resistances. The game requires and demands different strategies from you at each step of the way. Sometimes it rewards you for going all in and tanking 10 enemies at once. Other times, it brutally punishes you, so you have to be very aware of your surroundings and play accordingly. It's hard to be bored while playing this game. Something exciting and new is always happening. You always have to manage your resources. You have to set up town portals appropriately, especially in co-op. You have to go back and forth to vendors selling items, getting gold for potions and possibly new items. It's satisfying to use the town as a sort of item storage, just throwing all sorts of golden items on the ground for later, because items never disappear in single player. so it was fun stockpiling gold and items for later, especially in multiplayer, making sure you have a secondary backup item set in case things go wrong and you get killed, dropping all your equipment. Finally, when you reach stage 16, you face Diablo, and it's an iconic classic fight. He's hard as hell, but if you've killed enough monsters and done everything right, he goes down swiftly. You get this crazy cinematic where the main character jams Diablo's evil stone into his forehead. It's bizarre and weird enough to be unforgettable. Then the game ends with a mysterious robed figure saying "the end." It's a perfect ending to arguably a perfect game. After the ending screen, you can't keep playing in single player. You can only reload your previous save from before you killed Diablo, or start a kind of New Game Plus mode where you reset the whole dungeon but keep your stats. I wouldn't change anything about the game really. All the weird quirks and flaws are fine and add charm and personality to the game. The game isn't replayable as other RPGs like Diablo 2, but still, you can play through it a dozen or more times and still have fun. The single and multiplayer experiences alone are different enough to warrant multiple different playthroughs, not to mention the 3 different classes. Sadly, single player only has 1 difficulty, where multiplayer strangely enough has 3 difficulties, where you can keep playing as you level higher and higher. I don't think the higher difficulties in multiplayer change the game in drastic ways like it does in other ARPGs like Diablo 2. I think the monsters just get stronger, but the loot is mostly the same. Anyway, it's simply an iconic game that any fan of ARPGs should play at least once. 10 out of 10.
Fresh meat.